Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello, and welcome to My Hometown. My name is Bill Horan, along with my co-host, Nassau Community College student Zac Turkel. And today we're shining the spotlight on an award winner here on Long Island.
Yes, her name is Mimi Pierre-Johnson, and she was recently named the Elmont and Franklin Square Person of the Year for 2018 from the Long Island Herald newspapers.
That seems like quite an accomplishment, and it's all because she's the one responsible for creating the Elmont Cultural Center, and I can't wait to learn more about it. Mimi, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure.
Well, it is for us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. How did you feel when you won that honor? That, you know, it must be great to know that you're the Person of the Year.
I was in shock. Actually, a friend of mine stopped by and said, "Hey, congratulations." And I was like, "Congratulations for what?" And he opened up the newspaper and he was on the front page. And I said, "What?" So I was shocked, and I stayed home for about a week.
So that really, it really was a surprise, because usually we know about things ahead, or someone says you're going to be nominated or named. You were really taken by surprise.
I was. Actually, they told me when the reporter was interviewing me, he said it was because they were interviewing leaders in the community. So I figured, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm a leader. Ha.
So they snuck it in on you.
They snuck it in. My husband knew, though.
I was going to ask you if you were like the lady on the what is it, the commercial Congress mailing center, when you get that award at the door, someone comes up and gives you the $100,000 check.
Yes.
So I thought maybe it was, oh my gosh, I won.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's funny. So when did you move into the Long Island area, and where is your family from, Mimi?
Sure. So I moved to Elmont in 1995. And originally I lived in Cambria Heights, which is just like a hop skip, from Elmont, in Queens. So did you mean where I originated, migrated from?
Well, originally, and your family, yeah.
Sure. So I was born in Haiti.
Oh, okay.
And my family came here in 1970. So I've lived in the United States and became an American citizen, and just live on Long Island for about 20 some odd years, 23 years.
I don't think any of us realize that how appreciative we should be that the people like yourself who get involved. Now, you're the Person of the Year, and that's a great honor. But there's a lot of other people out there who are working very hard, and they do things for us. And this is why we have communities that are well-groomed, that look so nice, that are safe, and sometimes safer, because you get out there and say this is needed or better. But there's a lot of hard workers who are working behind the scenes. We always see the politician with the shovel. They're digging a hole someplace. But it's people like yourself that's really doing the work. So have you always been involved in community work?
Yeah, I have. I didn't realize until someone gave me a title of activist. I didn't even know what that was, really. I think I've always had the something in me. Whenever something is going wrong, I feel like I have to fix it. I don't know why. I just can't help myself.
We can have a list for you. Zach and I, after the show, we'll give you a list of things we need fixed. So, there we go, both of us. We need a good fixer around here.
Yeah.
Well, that is true. My husband always says to me, "Honey, you can't fix everything." So I'm like, I know, I can't help myself. He says, "Yes, you can," because it does get overwhelming sometimes. I do have to pick and choose the list, because it has its toll sometimes when you try to do so much, because I just can't help myself. When I see something is wrong, I just have to find out, why is it this way?
Now, when you say fixer, tell our audience what you mean by that. In other words, what type of item would you be fixing or helping with?
It depends. I think sometimes, like you said, people work hard. They don't have the time to, let's say there are many accidents happening, which is something like in my town, right? And so immediately my mind is like, well, what can we do?
You're talking about traffic accidents.
Yeah, traffic accidents. And so what can I do to make it safer for children or safer for pedestrians. So it's the lights, it's the signs. So in my area, the first thing I noticed was, well, where are the no U-turn signs, and where are the children crossing signs? And none of those things were there. So what happens is, you make one phone call after another, and before you know it, you have a traffic safety campaign going. And so that's how that happens. And fortunately for me, because I was an organizer for New York Communities for Change and other organizations, I've learned how to have a coalition and work together in partnership, which is something that I really love to do.
And that's very important. Now, are you in many other groups in order to have an influence and be an activist? I mean, is an activist just like the lone wolf runs out there and says, let's fix that? Or are you in 5 or 6 groups so you kind of have the pulse of the community?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's very important to have partnerships. It's very important to build consensus and build a coalition. I love building coalitions of different, diversity and different mindsets, because that's how we'll come together and solve whatever the issue of the day is. I always feel like if you're the only one that's talking and think that you can fix things, it's never going to work. You're always going to have problems because everyone is going to look to you. And it's not a healthy way of building community.
I think that you hit that good word there, building.
Yes.
You sound like the builder who knows how to, put this brick here, put that window there,
yes.
Put a door over here, meaning different people.
Yes.
And if we each get our say, and if each person, and if you dominate, I don't want to be on your committee because it's no fun.
Exactly.
So, and everybody wants it, and I think you realize that.
Exactly. I would be the slacker if I was in your committee.
You're always the slacker. If you need a slacker in any group, we volunteer Zach. He's an expert slacker.
I'm right here.
He's known for his slackiness.
Ready and willing to.
This sounds like a George Costanza, Zach, he's known for his slackiness. Yeah. I like that. I'll get you a T-shirt with that on.
I should. So let's get into the Elmont Cultural Center. When did it begin, and why did you want to create it?
Sure. So this is really funny. In 2008, right? So in 2008, I looked around and I thought, I really need we need a community center in Elmont, which we still don't have, right? And I thought at the time that an elected official would get it done. So I would tell everyone that we need a community center. Anyone who would listen, we need a community center. And in 2009, I realized, wait a minute, it's just not going to happen if I don't do it. So in 2009, I incorporated the Elmont Cultural Center. I didn't have a building. I didn't have anything. Don't even know what I'm doing. But I knew there was a need for it. So I started to work on it then. And then I realized it was really political. The things to do to get a community center. So I just said, well, then I'll become a politician and get a community center. So I ran for office in 2010. And then I realized, I don't know anything about running for office when I lost. So the seed was there. Unfortunately for, nonprofits and all of this, you need income, right? You need money. So I went to work. The one thing led to another, and I became a community organizer. And I've been that since then. And a year and a half ago, my organization that I worked for, downsized. So I became unemployed. And I said, you know what? I'm really going to do this. So the Elmont Cultural Center, a year and a half ago, I have been organizing on Long Island for a year and a half now, 100% doing that.
Just want to let our listeners know that you are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Zac Turkel, along with Bill Horan, and today we're talking about the Elmont Cultural Center with its founder and recent Long Island Herald Person of the Year, Mimi Pierre-Johnson. And Mimi, since you were talking about the election that you were running in, you were running for state assembly, and unfortunately you didn't win. And what did you learn from that experience going forward?
Not to run again.
Not to run again, exactly.
Get away from the politicians,
politics
right?
Is a dirty industry, maybe?
Yes, it is. I don't like to lose, but when I do, I need to find out, why did you lose? First of all, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
That's okay. We don't either.
Yeah.
Have no clue.
So I think I needed to understand the mechanism of running for office. I needed to understand what parties meant. I think as before I ran, I was actually the civic president at Argo Civic in Elmont. And that was, the board coming together, having a meeting once a month, talking about the issues. And that was great. But running for office and governing is two different things. And one of the things that I learned first off about politics is that those who are your friends, once you run for office, you'll be very surprised who are not standing with you.
A lot of interesting lessons there, right?
Yes.
It's the parties that just split everybody up.
Exactly. And so I realized then, and then of course, you need money, you need people, and that famous, you need a base. And I'm like, what is all of this? So I have since learned what all that means, and I enjoy actually running campaigns for others. I think it's a great thing to have good candidates that you can stand by, that's going to do something for your district. So the number one thing I learned by losing is you have to understand what's politics, what's campaigning, what's governing, and how to bring all that together in a coalition to get the best of our politicians in office.
I have a feeling, Zac, that the politicians have a book, and under T for trouble, there's a picture of Mimi. And they say, stay away from this lady. She's going to ask us for a stop sign or a traffic light. Now, those things would be relatively easy. You put a stop sign in, everybody's happy.
Yeah, sure.
You weren't happy with that. You're kind of greedy. You want a cultural center.
Yes, I do.
That's kind of a building and a big place. And,
That's right.
Like your own museum,
right.
Mimi's Cultural Center.
You got it.
So,
you got it.
I mean, the politicians must really say, stay away from her.
Yes.
Send her out to the beach. Let her check the shells or do a count on the number of fish in the ocean. But what does a cultural center, and let's talk about, what does that do for a community? How does that help?
Sure. So I often correct, folks, my friends and even my board members when they say, a community center. I said, no, you have to think about it as a cultural center. And for me, what that means is I want to see everyone that's in my district, in my community, where you come from. I want to know what how did you get here? Let's exchange our diversity, whether it's food, music, the cultural arts, from where you come from. And now, how does that affect us in our community, whether it's our politics, whether it's our education, whatever it is that makes you tick? I want to know because I have something to share. And I think if we all got into this space where we can share with each other culturally, I think that's the beginning of really great movement amongst us, not just in our own communities, but my dream is to have a gathering place where, whether you are from the Caribbean or Italy or whatever it is, that we are constantly sharing in our culture. And then what are the issues that you're having? Because we forget about the immigrants that move into our communities, that they have no idea how to assimilate the right way to help us. And, since I am Haitian, I always like to say to the Haitian community that when you came here, you found a good place to live, right? So now it's your responsibility to keep that going. So you have to get involved. But in order for us to get involved with each other in the communities, we have to understand our cultures.
And it's so great, the people getting together. It's like Zac and I, when we do these interviews, we learn so much every week. And I go home, and I'm sure Zac does, and I say, I just learned about cancer. I just learned about how the police work, how a community activist works. There's so much that we can gain from one another. And if that center comes to fruition, we'll find out more about it.
Oh, definitely.
We have to give you a lot of credit. Mimi, at this point in the show, we're going to take a brief break and let the audience know that my name is Bill Horan. I'm here with Zac Turkel, and today we're talking about the Elmont Cultural Center with its founder and recent Long Island Herald Person of the Year, Mimi Pierre-Johnson. You're listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
It was a goal that I wanted to achieve from the very beginning. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. I wasn't sure if I could do it. It was very hard for me, but the teachers, the counselors, they help you. One of the teachers was Miss Araceli. Miss Araceli, she gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it.
At age 47, with the help of his teacher, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work. Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is. It catapults you to where you want to go.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
And now we return to My Hometown.
Thanks for being with us today here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill Horan. I'm here with Zac Turkel, and today we're talking about the Elmont Cultural Center with its founder and recent Long Island Herald Person of the Year, Mimi Pierre-Johnson. Zac?
Yeah, so a hot button topic lately is immigration, and I know that the Elmont Cultural Center can help people who aren't yet a U.S. citizen. So what help is offered for them?
So, again, with partnering with different immigration attorneys, one organization that I work with is NIC, the New York Immigration Coalition. Because many of the immigrants don't have the money to hire an attorney to figure out things for them. So these organizations, for free, they are able to sit with immigrants who need immigration services. So, right now we're living at a time where you don't know what's going to happen if you have, let's say, TPS, which is a temporary protective status. For some of the countries, whatever happened in their country, they're now here. We had at one point where the Haitians were going to be deported, who their TPS would run out and they were not going to reestablish it. And so there are questions. And so when that came back, the decision was, yes, let's extend it. So now what do you do? So you have to reapply again, and there's monies involved. And one of the reasons why I work on this is because I don't want anyone to give money to the wrong person and then don't have the proper paperwork from our government. So to make sure that, it's not cheap either. You're talking about $500, $600, $800 to give to someone, and you think you have the proper status, and they didn't file it properly, and now you're in a bigger problem than you were before. So I always want to make sure that if we have partners, they not only know what they're doing, but they have the credentials to help the immigrants with whatever it is that they need, whether it's ESL, whether it's jobs, whatever it is that they need, to make them feel like you're home now. This is your home, and let's work together so that you can feel comfortable in our communities.
Mimi, that's really so important to people, and to have a resource like that. We don't realize, we only see it when the bad thing happens, meaning someone doesn't file the papers or they scam us, but that you're out there willing to do this and with people who are knowledgeable and concentrating on it. Right. I'd like our audience to know that if you're enjoying this show and you want to help other people, let them know they can go to nccradio.org. You can go to podcast of My Hometown and, again, listen to what Mimi was just saying and instruct other people to listen so they know what's going on in the Elmont community and how Mimi can help them, and then they can be pests and call you or contact you. And what's the best way if they want some activity and they want a good activist on their side? How do they get in touch with Mimi?
They can go on the Elmont Cultural Center.org. They can go on our Facebook page and instant message me. And Facebook is really where I get a lot of feedback from our instant message. So it's the Elmont Cultural Center on Facebook or on our website.
Well, and I have a feeling if you want something done, if you contact Mimi, it's going to get done, and she's going to be a pain in the butt to the politicians, but she'll get it done for you, so she's the person you want to know.
Absolutely.
Now, Mimi, now I'm going to test you a little bit here.
Uh-oh.
Now, we have on Long Island a housing problem, and there's a lack of housing.
Yes.
How does the Cultural Center, does it get involved in that, and how does it help people get housing?
So one of the things that I said before, for years I worked with organizations, NYCC for example. That is how I got involved in activism, really, in the 2005, when the housing bubble, burst and whatever, I was facing foreclosure. And I knew there was something that was just not right, because I called Washington Mutual. That's not even here. And I said to them, listen, the business that I'm in, I can see that I'm going to have problems with my mortgage. What can I do? I'm trying to be proactive. And they said, oh, yeah, you can get a loan modification. The loan modification didn't happen. And one of the things that the banks were doing was telling you that you cannot pay your mortgage while you're going through the loan modification process. Now, if you are already late, right, or you're about to be late, and now you're going through this process to get a loan modification, and they won't accept your mortgage every month, that's accumulating. So many of us that fell into that trap, I just felt that was wrong. So New York Communities for Change was one of the organizations that I went to, and lo and behold, I became an activist because I knew there was something wrong with that. And it was right around the time of Occupy Wall Street. So all of that came into play.
Were you occupying?
Oh, yes, I was.
I kind of knew it, Zach. I knew it.
And it's funny that you asked me that question, because that's where it started for me. I was enamored with people fighting for housing. And I got to see not just foreclosures, but also a housing crisis. I mean, right now in New York State, there's over 800,000 people who are homeless, and not just the ones that we know of.
800, that's close to 1 million, just
yes.
to visualize.
Yeah. So in New York State, and that's just people that are not at somebody's home, because technically after 90 days you are homeless, right? If you're not paying your own rent and all this. So when we think about all of these homeless shelters and people who are suffering as far as housing is concerned, one of the things that I still do is help people with foreclosure, to help them to stay in their home. As an activist, I don't want just for you to go to a housing counselor. I need you to stay in your home and fight for it, because that's all right. As long as you have the income to be able to pay your mortgage or to pay rent, you should have the right to have a roof over your head. And so the activism part comes in where you fight to stay in your home. And I know that as an experience, I fought to stay in my home. The other part is, of course, you have to go through the housing counseling so that you are able to understand what happened to you with your mortgage and the bank, and how moving forward you will be able to manage your money the right way, so that you don't fall back into the situation of losing your home.
And that's very good advice, and it's not the first time I've heard about the banks you mentioned giving wrong advice.
Oh, that's a whole other show.
We will devote a whole other show to that. That'd be great. You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Zac Turkel, along with Bill Horan, and today we're talking about the Elmont Cultural Center with its founder and recent Long Island Herald Person of the Year, Mimi Pierre-Johnson. And Mimi, what are some of your goals for the year ahead when it comes to the Elmont Cultural Center?
Getting a building.
Okay.
So we are in the process of looking. I don't want to do it outside of Elmont, because I think where I would like for it to be is central to Nassau County. It's near highways. It's near transportation, because it's not just because it's the Elmont Cultural Center. It's not just about Elmont. I want the Cultural Center, as I said before, to be a place, a space of gathering, so that all of us could come and share with one another. So my biggest goal really is to have that space for the Cultural Center to begin. And then the other thing too, that's very dear to me, which started all this about the community center anyway back in 2008, 2009. I lived between an elementary school, and on the other side of me is the junior high school in one building. And it always bothered me that you have sixth graders leaving to go into the high school building, which also houses the junior high school. And so sometimes I see these precious children. I mean, they're only 12, and they now are, in the same space as 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds. And they have no other outlet just to stay a child a little bit longer. And so my goal to have this, the Cultural Center, is so that these children in that age range from 12 to 16 can actually go someplace and learn other things besides just video games, the arts, music. All of these things are infrastructures that I already have, but many times I have to go to Harlem for a play that we just were a part of. My son plays the djembe, which is the West African drums, right? I would love to see other children have that opportunity to think about other things, to look into themselves, so that they are not so that they don't fall into the traps of that 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, which is very important for that age, to fall into gangs or whatever it is that parents have to work very hard.
Getting in trouble.
Getting in trouble, yes.
That's what Zach does.
Getting in
we
trouble.
have to watch him from 3 to 6, otherwise
Exactly.
he gets into trouble. So
that's my goal, to make sure I see that. One of the biggest fantasies I have is, the djembe is a very, you have a djembe on your back and they're walking to the community center because they're about to jam a nice jam session, jazz, or, all these kind of things. I'd love to see that happen.
Now, Mimi, tell us some of the other events and that people may not realize that you're involved in, interested in, and that they may want to contact you about or take part or maybe volunteer with you.
Yeah, sure. When we think about, different levels, the Cultural Center is a 501c3, so we can't do political work. However, I still want people to be involved in the political process. So people don't know sometimes, especially immigrants, they don't know where do I register to vote? How do I register to vote? What are the political parties? What do they stand for? And so there's an education piece of the Culture Center where we want to make sure that people understand the electoral process, so that they can inform themselves when it's around election time, so that you know what the questions to ask. You'd be very surprised as to people don't understand. Do I go to my congressman for sanitation? No, those are the federal level. You can speak about immigration stuff. So there are many things. Who do I talk to about the budget for my area? There are many potholes. Who do I call?
Oh, potholes. You're the one. I'm calling you. When you get home, you're going to see my name all over.
Yes. So it's important for people to be educated that way. So that's education is one of the things.
You've mentioned some great topics, Mimi, but tell our audience and slowly, give us that website where they can get in touch with you and then be ready for the onslaught.
Okay. So it's the ElmontCulturalCenter.org, or Facebook, it is the Elmont Cultural Center. And you can leave messages on there. You can, just write on there. Whatever the problem is, just write and I will
And
get
as
back
our
to
audience
you.
can see, and I'm going to start making T-shirts and selling them, Mimi makes it happen. If you want something, contact Mimi Pierre-Johnson. She'll get it done for you, and you'll have a lot of fun. You probably want to be an activist yourself.
That's right.
Mimi, we want to thank you for being here and let our audience know our guest has been Mimi Pierre-Johnson. She's the founder of the Elmont Cultural Center and recent Long Island Herald Person of the Year.
Oh.
So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I'd like our audience to know that I'm Bill Horan, along with Zac Turkel, and we thank you for listening to this week's edition of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to WHPC at ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.